Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Criminal Minds Season 2, Episode 3, The Perfect Storm. And we have our episode in a nutshell. And in this episode, it starts with a family receiving a DVD of their daughter in which she is being tormented. And this is then sent to the FBI because there had been a previous DVD that happened. And before even the DVD started, there were several other victims also who had been tormented in a similar way before dying. And the team is brought in. And eventually, through investigation, they do discover that the most recent victim had died. And that for those of them that were kidnapped while they were driving, their cars all went through the same body shop, which leads them to an ex-con mechanic. And from the ex-con mechanic, who ends up dying because he doesn't want a third strike, so he basically forces the police officers and the team to shoot him. He was, through his cellmates, they find the perpetrator. However, they know that it's a team that's working, and at first they think he was the dominant of the team. However, upon further analysis, they realize he's not the dominant, he's actually the submissive, and it was his wife all along. His wife, when she was younger, was tormented in the same way these women were, which, apparently, according to Reed, in 1 in 8 cases, the abuser can become, or the abused can become the abuser. In this case, that's what happened with Amber. Her father and brothers took her to a cabin, would torment her there, and eventually she did go to try to get help, went to a hospital, gave a statement to the police. Then her own mother betrayed her and told everybody that she was lying about it, even though you would think it wouldn't matter what the mother said, given that she went to a hospital with actual injuries. I'm sure kits were done. It should have been like, we've got evidence, lady, shut up, but apparently not. Anyways, that's an aside. Point being, she doesn't feel that she got help, and her own mother betrayed her and went against her, which is why the DVDs that she sends are specifically addressed to the mothers of the victims to basically make them watch their daughters in these situations. And once the team finally puts together that she's the actual person that's behind it all, when Garcia finally isolates her voice in the video, giving orders, they then have the husband flip on her. He flips because there was different DNA in the first 2 victims, meaning that he wasn't special and she'd gotten another guy to do what he does for her before. And this, I guess, insults his pride enough that he's willing to then confirm she's the one that's a culprit, and he gives the location of the cabin. They arrive at the cabin just as in time as Amber is about to kill Tiffany, the most recent kidnapped victim, and they manage to save Tiffany. They also dig up a male body from the cabin, which is presumed to be the perpetrator of the first 2 crimes, and Amber is, of course, arrested, and then everybody goes home. So now that we've been reminded briefly about what happened in the episode, it's time to rank the episode, first on the mostly objective ranking, followed by the personal ranking. So first off, we have our single episode supporting character introductions. And we have Amber Canardo, who was the mastermind dominant personality of the duo. Then we had Anthony Paul Canardo, who is the perpetrator who did the crimes on the orders of Amber while she watched. And then the main go-to at the police station was Detective Robert Portillo. Honorable mention for Joseph Davin. He, again, ended up being killed, but he was unwittingly a part of them. He was just taking the cars apart and selling them for parts. He didn't actually participate in any of the actual gruesome murders or anything, but because he was on his third strike, he didn't want to go back to a longer sentence and so chose to die by cop instead. And then we also had the fact that this episode was very memorable. It was memorable for several reasons. First off, the fact that the perpetrator, the actual like mastermind, was woman, was unique. Um, there was the fact that it was a team, which is also usually somewhat rare. We have seen it before in the series, but it is a little bit more of a rarity. So that made it memorable. The DVDs were a unique feature and probably the most memorable thing because as soon as that first scene played with the DVD, I was like, I know exactly which episode this is. So the DVDs also made it very memorable. Um, and that is 4 points. There were 3 characters, and that makes it a 7 out of 7 episode. And that puts our mostly objective ranking 2 in first, The Fisher King Part 2, The Perfect Storm, and then P911 in last place so far. My personal ranking for this episode, I think I do agree with the objective ranking in this case. I also gave it a 7 out of 10. It was an engaging episode. There were twists and turns. We were led down several wrong paths towards the wrong people. There was the whole, at first they knew it was a team from the start, but at first they thought it was Joseph and Anthony. Then they realized it. Then they capture Anthony, think he's the dominant, and that Joseph was submissive, but actually Anthony turns out to be the submissive to Amber, his wife, and Amber ends up being the dominant mastermind behind the entire thing. And that kind of came out of nowhere because they really subverted expectations with the casting of Amber. Um, although I guess if you've seen Supernatural, you probably wouldn't have been super subverted because they did a similar thing with the same actress. But the point is, it was interesting. It was also interesting the fact of the DVDs, the tie-in to basically Amber being so trapped in her past traumas she can't escape it, and she is repeating it upon innocent other people. What was done to her, essentially. And then the mothers that show that they actually care because they went on the news and made a plea. That are nothing like her own mother. She wants revenge on them, so she sends them the DVDs. I did feel a little bit bad about the fact that the one victim's dad, when they got the DVD, ended up dying of a heart attack because he had a pre-existing condition and was so appalled by what he saw that it aggravated his heart and he ended up dying. But then at the same time, that's almost a mercy because, at least he didn't have to find out what actually happened to her after the fact. Or you can, if you believe in the afterlife, they're probably together there and he can help her out. So, but I did feel a bit bad about that, like start like the unintended extra victim of them. Yeah, it was a memorable episode. It was an engaging episode, but it also wasn't like a overly likable episode, which is why I just gave it a 7 instead of a higher score. But that does put it into The Fisher King Part 2 as first place, Perfect Storm in second, and then P911 in third. And that brings us to our ranking list. Season 1 currently in first. Season 2 on the mostly objective is at 18 out of 230. And 21 out of 230 on the personal list. But with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Criminal Minds Season 2, Episode 3, The Perfect Storm. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.